Anime is able to communicate in ways nothing else can. In this video, I'll show you examples of how the fact that everything in an anime had to be created from scratch exposes the soul of the artists who made it, and how it allows so many things simply not possible in other mediums, or even in their own live-action adaptations. Starting with the show and the scene in it that inspired this video. Oshi no Ko is an anime entirely about the entertainment industry, and for large portions the quality of people's acting is very important. You'd think a story like that would be better told in a medium where you can see actual physical performers acting. One of the benefits that live action can have is acting, and the more detailed and complex expressions that an actor can perform.
What was her name?
Her name was Rose.
But for a story like Oshi no Ko, where it's important that there are wide gulfs between the quality of people's acting, it just wouldn't really work very easily. You can't really rely on the audience being able to easily tell the difference between a mediocre performer and an excellent one, while everything else is also still going on without at very least risking taking them out of the moment. But in animation, Oshi no Ko is able to emphasise those differences through symbolic means, by completely changing someone's face so that it looks flat and lifeless, just like they're acting, or by putting literal stars in people's eyes to represent that magnetic star quality that they have. Animation allows them to use clear metaphor for the power and impact of people's acting. Oshi no Ko also has a scene that I found particularly moving, and that is actually what made me have to make this video, where a side character called Melt does some acting. When we first see him, he's the terrible actor ruining the production of the live-action adaptation of a manga. The series is bombing and is detested by fans, as all of the actors have to lower the quality of their performances to match him, so as to not make things even worse by making his poor acting even more blatant by contrast. Some stuff happens, and the main character of Oshi no Ko manages to get a good performance out of him for the big moment in the final episode, but the series continues to be disliked and unpopular. But now, Melt has experienced real acting, and he watches back the programme and realises just how fucking terrible he was. By the time we see him again, when he's cast in a play that the main characters are also in, he's still not very good. But we eventually see, when the play actually opens and his time comes, that he has been practicing, diligently working and exercising as well. And we find out why he was arrogant enough before to single-handedly tank an entire production. We see his past, see that before he was really ready, an older girl had her way with him, that people would approach him, laugh at his jokes, ask him to model. No matter what he really did, it just all worked out. Until it didn't. Until he ruined the adaptation of a work someone poured their soul into, and he didn't even try. He didn't even care to put in any effort. When the play finally does open, he's ready this time to put his all into his big moment. For this 1 minute, I won't lose, he says. And then all of that backstory, his entire character, his entire being, gets perfectly distilled without words into a wonderful sequence of animation, where we see how everyone fawned over him to the point that the whole of Tokyo transforms into his playground, before he experiences being a real star, and finally notices the true stars all around him. He begins to chase after that real star, as we see him rehearsing and working, but it remains ever out of his reach, as he stretches so hard to touch it that he himself transforms. As he reaches new levels, the stars still just move further away from him, until the sweat and blood of his work births a new melt, forged by fire for this very moment, and he finally feels some satisfaction and peace. And I didn't realise until I actually began making this video that the sequence itself is almost exactly 1 minute. What else would you see that in? Where else but anime would you see 1 single minute artistically represent an entire character? It can be done elsewhere, of course, but where else would you actually see it? When something like that is tried in film, it's only really in small art house films, and can have a tendency to feel pretentious. And I don't particularly blame audiences for feeling that way. It often is pretentious. And so it remains completely outside of the mainstream. Most people never see it, and most people never want to. But the completely artificially created world of animation makes it just seem more natural. But it's not just animation though, is it? It is anime. You don't generally see sequences like that in Western animation either. It seems like the only approved time in the West for the animation to take the focus and get a bit unusual is a drug sequence and things like that. Even fantastic shows that people like to call anime, like Castlevania or Arcane, have a distinct Western feel. Although I started watching season 2 of Arcane while editing this, and it's completely different. Season 1 felt to me more like prestige television, where there's a sense in them that every element is completely in service of and subservient to the greater whole, leaving very little room for individual expression by the artists along the way. Focusing on the greater whole is great, of course, but it means that they generally always feel made by a lot of people, whereas anime productions can often feel like they're made by a group, each individually contributing a piece of themselves to the specific overarching vision of one other person. Often that's simply by necessity because they are adapting a work made by one single person, but it still often holds true even in original anime. In anime, you can often see the presence and unique quirks of a specific artist in the individual sequences that they work on. There are whole Sakuga communities able to identify the key animators of individual cuts of animation through their art style and quirks alone. Anime just seems that little bit more willing to let its artists put their own little personal spin on things, and really just play to their own individual strengths. Fate Apocrypha ends with some incredible animation for its final fights, all extremely distinct, with clearly different animators. But in doing so, it does also show the downside of this much individuality in a production. The art style's sudden shifts and changes in detail can be jarring, but I would take that any day of the week for animation this fluid, with this much movement, and with this much personality. It extends beyond just the animation too, though. It often applies to nearly every element. Music! and Western productions often seems to go by the same motto as editing, where it's incredibly important, but if you ever actually notice it, then something's gone wrong. Whereas anime is known for hugely impactful, incredibly emotional music drops. You can find countless TikToks and skits and whatever talking or joking about when an anime plays the opening music at the biggest point of a show. And the openings themselves. Western intro sequences are often subdued and dull, with neither particularly interesting visuals nor notable music. I don't want to take away from the art that also goes into them or anything, but they are often ripe for the skip intro button. And you never hear a peep of discussion about being an intro skipper outside of anime for a reason. Even the exceptions that come to mind right now don't really hold up as well to repeat viewing. While anime openings, at least for some people, are interesting to watch multiple times and have new things been noticed and opinions on them grown and changed over time with successive viewings. Personally, even when it's not an opening that I like, I try to give it a few tries, because very often the opening and its music grows on me and gets me interested in something I never otherwise would have been. The music in openings and cut-in songs has produced countless Japanese charts toppers. So many people find their new favourite bands or individual artists through anime. Art is communication from one person to many others. One of the only definitions of art that makes sense to me is just anything made by people with great effort or great thought. That might seem too wide-reaching nowadays, where the things we automatically think of as art are things like movies, books and TV shows, stories basically. But it used to be that when you thought of art, some of the first things to come to mind would be things like sculptures and architecture. Things that are harder to say have themes, messages. But they are still art because they still are communication. Because whatever you create, you put a little to a lot of yourself into, whether you mean it or not. From the big things, like why you chose to make a gloomy, depressed main character, to the backgrounds and environments that you've always dreamt of. But also to the small, like why you drew that line thick. Anime feels like it generally requires the most choices to be made by the people making it, and thus makes it easier to feel the heart and soul that has been put into it. Absolutely everything in an anime has to be decided on and made by someone. There's no cup put in the background just because it's what someone happened to own. A scene is unlikely to be set on a street or that one Californian desert just because it's convenient. And even when something is chosen because of convenience, it feels more significant because they had to completely recreate it. It's not just the cup that they happened to own, it's a person having committed to staring at that cup and replicating it, drawing or modelling it in order to entirely integrate it in particular into the completely different two-dimensional world that they're creating that only represents ours in some way through animation. When you spend hours replicating that cup, it feels like it must be more significant to you. Is it their favourite cup? Is it just what they view as the quintessential cup? Why do they view that cup in particular as the standard cup? Why is the cup there? It must have felt very important that a cup be put there in particular in order to spend the time replicating it. It had to be created. It can't have already just been there. And so, even though a lot of those questions can be asked of live-action productions too, anime makes the choices that are made more obvious and undeniable, and as a result, more compelling. That innate separation from reality also simply allows more freedom. The constraints of our real world no longer apply. And not just in the obvious way where action and magic and high concepts and just cool shit and everything are cheaper, it also simply allows expression. That's why romance and slice of life anime can work, and work so well. Slice of life anime can forgo even basic conflict because it can produce strong emotions even without it. There's nothing else that can really provide the same feelings of extreme comfort and coziness that can be achieved by slice of life anime. In large part because of the presentation. The way animation can amplify the feeling of a normal day so much that you can actually feel and notice and appreciate those normal, everyday occurrences of life is incredible. The sheer expressiveness possible can replace the need for constant conflict required by most stories, and allow you to simply enjoy the characters themselves for who they are. The characters can be so cute and sweet, even with clear, supposedly negative traits that could otherwise consume our perception of them through our assumptions about and prejudices against delinquents. The promiscuous.
中学で100人切りってすごすぎる。私を満足させられる男が100人もいるが、いるんなら連れてきな。見定めてやったら。
Schemers are just the generally weird and quiet, and all the strange ways that they can be perceived and ostracized.
これ落としましたよ。
They can be presented so that we can get past all of that, past our prejudgments and biases, and appreciate them for who they are. See how their differences make life more interesting and fun for everyone. And in the end, just want them to be happy and for everybody to get along. Roger Ebert called movies empathy-generating machines, and through what I just described, you can see animation's power in that, and how it can also allow us to punch through the barriers that might limit or slow understanding. By these stories amplifying the positive so much, being so cute, and the show being so beautiful, you can begin to appreciate just how amazing normal, simple people and personalities are, as well as their normal, overall minor problems. By being so peaceful, the whole presentation can come together to actually amplify conflict through that feeling of just wanting everyone to get along and be happy. Which I think could be why people can confuse romance stories or dramas as slice of life on the surface level, because they can use the same techniques and presentation in order to amplify their conflicts. By combining the positive vibes with complex antagonists with problems of their own, the drama can be elevated by making it so that we don't just want our main characters to be okay, we also want even the ones causing their problems to be redeemed and happy and friends. But more is possible than just elevated positivity, obviously. Anything can be emphasised. From me to you is a romance about a teenage girl who has been a loner her whole life, to the point that now in high school there are rumours that she's cursed, and she's gotten the nickname Sadako, the name of the girl from The Ring. And as you can see, the animation can easily, comedically show the way this normal, sweet girl can be really creepy. But I'm using this example because it also recently received a live-action adaptation, where you can see that it just doesn't come across at all. The show tries to establish the reason for her nickname just the same as the anime, but here it just feels like people are insanely overreacting to a kind of normal, shy girl. And I say kind of normal because she's clearly a gorgeous actress. Whereas the low detail of anime faces and the decisions made for the character designs here make her appearance more vague. You can get the sense that she's quite plain looking. A normal, awkward teenage girl, basically. Capable of being very cute, but also of looking a bit frumpy. Or absolutely terrifyingly unnatural. She's still growing and hasn't figured out her appearance or how to force a natural smile yet. She's a teenager, and the skinny, lanky character designs of the anime make her look it. Her tomboy delinquent friend doesn't look anywhere near as unique as she does in the animation either, nor is she anywhere near as funny. The live action still includes the scene of her trying to get a specific seat in class, but without any of the comedic reason for it. She pretty much immediately just slinks off to another seat, because the joke that they had before just wouldn't work in live action. Her other friend just looks nice, rather than the more mature, heavily made up look that she's supposed to be judged by her peers based on. It's a problem quite common across the entertainment industry, where even supposedly ugly, awkward or ostracised people aren't allowed to be actually ugly, or even normal. And you can see the same thing with Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken and its live-action adaptation. The extremely unique character designs are gone, and Mizusaki no longer stands out at all as the model that she's supposed to be. I don't actually want to be too hard on the live actions or anything overall though. The point is that they lose the universal appeal and clarity that has allowed anime to have worldwide success. Eizouken is a strange one to receive a live action anyway, when it's a show about the love and creation of anime that shows how personal an artist's work can be and the passion that these people can have. Asakusa can't help herself drawing other environments and weird places and things. She imagines and thinks of new ones all the time and dreams of seeing them fully realised. And she just has to get them out and on paper because it's just all so cool to her. She has fun imagining new and weird things and bringing them into reality. And as a viewer, I can feel that in anime. Mizusaki is fascinated by people and the details of how they move. Whether it's something elegant and cool like her grandmother throwing tea, or the mechanics of how people move and the differences that there can be. Her interest eventually allowing her to help her aging grandmother stand and walk a little, briefly. She's fascinated by people. This scene where she watches and tries to mimic her gran throwing tea is focused on her, giving us her perspective. But it might also be a bit easier to understand how she's feeling in a way if we imagine being her grandma instead in this moment. Imagine watching a little 5-year-old, or however old she is, become intensely interested in something you just did and keep trying and failing to do it themselves, and apologising when they do because they've just made a mess.
ごめんなさい。
大丈夫よ。
But you say it's fine, because you know it's just tea. It can just be wiped away. And more than that, it's worth it. This little person is learning right in front of you and has just randomly taken an interest in this thing in particular that you just did for no discernible reason. The gears that you can see turning in a child's head like this are just so cute. Aren't people just interesting? And you can see here that the people who have drawn little Mizusaki have also shown the same kind of care to detail in how people move. When she turns her head back to look at her gran, head outstretched, face long, slightly awkward and unbalanced, exactly like a child. Mimicry is the highest form of flattery. She sees her grandma do something so cool to her that she just naturally wants to replicate it. She and the artist that drew her, and I am fascinated by what people do. I hope we all are to some extent, and I think that's the hardest part to communicate to AI enthusiasts. The fundamental difference that makes it difficult to bridge the gap is that I just do not care what a text-to-image generator produces. I understand why there is that difference. In the current world of increasing slop and content and endless things like Marvel movies, and I say that loving Marvel movies, I have a whole shelf of them and everything, there's an increasing sense for a lot of people that media just exists to fill time and be a bit of fun. But you have to understand the difference between the, for example, Marvel movies and shows that are just pure mediocre, who cares slop, and the ones that energise you, that make you rabid and want to consume every other related thing and rewatch the same movie repeatedly. That difference is people. Because these text-to-image generators and the like are not AI with intelligence of its own, reflecting itself, its experiences, and own favourite things back into what it makes. And nor can I care about your prompt when there is so much art out there made by people who have put in so much more effort and time and thus of themselves into what they have made. And what if I want something new? AI is a plagiarism machine. It takes everything put into it without even getting people's permission and spits out something else using the same pieces but just in a different shape. But what if the thing I'm imagining as an artist is new? I know that can feel unrealistic considering all of the masses of works already out there. How can anything be new? But when you really think about it, do you really believe that there's no room for new ideas? For things you've never seen before? I know for a lot of people, including myself, Made in Abyss felt like it expanded your imagination itself. Asakusa from Eizouken truly got into and discovered her love for anime from seeing an adventure story as a kid, and it doing just that for her. Expanding her imagination, increasing the amount of things she could think about. Good fiction truly just expands our minds and makes us able to consider completely new things that we never would have been able to before, and different perspectives. It allows us to empathise with and get in the heads of completely different people and experience what a person's life can be like from a completely different point of view or background. To underestimate how many new things there are still to be created is even more unrealistic the smaller you go. Asakusa imagined a tank that was small and round and self-righting. a wing pack that unfurls glass wings from the back that then spin and create lift, a dragonfly helicopter that she also found in the process of making it, after looking at a sketch of a mechanical head and discussing and thinking about and imagining the mechanics. These are all things that come from her, that are simultaneously more and less than just a prompt. More because they are specifically her. They come from who she is as a person and the things she's excited about, and are new, unique pieces of technology that don't already exist in such a way that they can be easily described or come out exactly as she imagines without a human hand. But they are also less because they become all of that as she spends time on them, putting the work into the creation of them. Mimicry is the highest form of flattery, not just because you like something enough to want to copy it, but because you also like it enough to put the time into replicating it. Because that person's voice is interesting enough to you that you would practice and hone your impression until you actually do sound like them. That you would keep throwing that tea until you can do it in a way that would make your grandmother proud. That you're willing to put so much time into learning to draw like the animators and artists that have inspired you so much that even just in some small, tiny way, your whole life changes because of it, as you become someone who can draw, or whatever else. Your Lie in April repeatedly shows the impact that art can have, as it shows the magic of a person's emotions being communicated through masterfully crafted art, and how it can brighten people's lives and embolden them to be more themselves. We see several times what crafting art means to people, and how much being inspired, even just to become an artist yourself, can change you. Even if it only seems slight at the time, the entire course of your life can change. And after 50 years of slightly different directions, you can be left a completely different person. You can be left one that's alive. I haven't experienced anything that simple, but when I watched JoJo's Part 6 for the first time, once I started feeling a bit better after the monetary side improved slightly, and just began crying from what I consider a beautifully happy ending, it suddenly occurred to me in that moment that I was just so happy to be alive to have seen it. Even if my life is completely empty, I want to see an ending like that one more time. I want to keep being able to experience these beautiful stories that people craft with their very souls. I often end up crying at just the sheer work, art, and craftsmanship that gets put into these wonderful shows and scenes. And because I'm a guy talking about crying, and not just once in my life at the best thing ever, but often when I want to, I need to quickly say that if you think that's unmanly, you're a pussy. I'm a man. I'll cry when I goddamn want to. And that's not to say I don't get it. I have difficulty crying at all elsewhere as well, like many other people. But I made this video because when I see these incredible stories, complex characters, or fantastic animation that a person has worked hard on and honed their skill for years to make, I can't help but get teary, even when there's nothing sad. I cry every single time I watch the incredibly underseen memorial video released for the anniversary of a mobile game, as it so brilliantly shows both the sadness and depravity of humanity, as well as the sheer beauty and hopefulness of the indomitable human spirit, as a 16-year-old girl manages to sing beautifully with minimal edits in both English and Japanese, with a melody that just strikes the core of your heart as the unbelievably detailed, painstaking animation perfectly shows and captures the feelings of those historical figures who lived huge lives, doing everything they could to make an impact and help other people die with their unfinished business and become stories that live on and still affect and impact people thousands of years later, while they can only watch as their kingdoms crumble and people kill each other and be able to do nothing about it, only to be suddenly given the opportunity through the fictional means of the fate summoning system to come back and not just exist again, but fight to protect and revive all of humanity as part of the mobile game's main story, supervised by one man but not entirely written by him, as he uses the platform to give other writers the chance to shine and show and emphasise their own unique style, making chapters as long as entire novels, as well as feature hundreds of different artists freely allowed to draw characters and their own unique art style in a game about humanity and the human experience itself. How could I not cry? How could I not feel the absolute need to make something of my own and gush about this beautiful medium of art? This being a video about passion and the things that I'm passionate about made making this and editing and cutting parts quite difficult. I cut a lot of stuff kind of more about art in general, specific problems with AI, inspiration. I cut all of that to try to keep it focused on anime. But I hope it didn't come across like I was putting down anything else or any other mediums or production styles or anything when comparing and contrasting things. I just had to communicate why this one in particular can affect me so much. And still couldn't cover everything, like why it's so awesome that so many of these things are drawn in particular. I'll say, if you enjoyed, you should maybe subscribe, as I'm a small channel and there's far from any guarantee that you'll see anything from me again. If you don't, I have other videos I want to make, like the lesson on humanity and dehumanization in Attack on Titan, a video about Made in Abyss, one about Gundam Unicorn, and one about a fantastic underrated fantasy story. But if you're worried about seeing unrelated content and stuff like that come up as well if you subscribe, then for the same reason it shouldn't really be an issue, because I am just a small channel and the algorithm will just very quickly know what not to show to you. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Go and watch or experience a beautiful story. Until hopefully next time, bye.